Want to hear some inside scoop? If your kids are as ready to go back to school as mine are, you gotta check out Kohl's. I got my daughters the cutest sew tops for under $18, JanSport backpacks for 25% off, and 30% off Levi's jeans for me. I even saved an extra 15% and picked up Kohl's cash. So, yeah, not sure who's more excited right now, me or the girls. Select styles, 15% offer ends August 15th. Levi's coupons do not apply. Some exclusions apply. See store Kohl's.com for details.
T-Mobile gives you more ways than ever to get out there with America's largest 5G network and the epic iPhone 12 with 5G on us. Whether you're hitting the road,
Check out this great 4K video. I even posted it with 5G way out here.
or getting the team together. Right now, current and new customers get up to 4 iPhone 12s on us on our Max plan with eligible trade-ins. Only at T-Mobile.
Each phone on us via 24 credits plus tax for well-qualified buyers. If you cancel credit, stop and balance on required finance agreements may be due. Contact us. See 5G coverage, access, and offer details at T-Mobile.com.
Today's podcast is presented by Podgo. Podgo is the easiest way for you to monetize your podcast, providing podcasters with a flat rate for ad space so you always know how much you get when you include an ad from Podgo. I recently joined as a member, and you can too. Apply today to become a member and immediately be connected with advertisers that fit your audience. That's podgo.co at podgo.co. And when you go to apply and they ask you, how did you hear about Podgo? Make sure you tell them that the Vault Classic Music Review sent you.
Welcome to the Vault Podcast, Classic Music Reviews, presented by IV Creative. Now, here's your hosts, B. Cox and the crew.
Greetings and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of the Vault Podcast, Classic Music Reviews, presented by IV Creative. It's a perspective of the classics from a fresh point of view. We appreciate you for taking your time and lending your ears to our perspective. You could be anywhere listening to anything, but you're right here with us, so we thank you. With you today is yours truly, B. Cox, and I have a very special guest that's going to join me today. But before we get to that, first off, shout out to all the fans out there, stateside and worldwide, continuing to show love to the show. Y'all have great feedback of the Tribe review we did, and also of the special bonus episode we did with the Breaking Adams podcast with Sumit Sharma and Chris Mitchell. Guys, thank you so much for this feedback. We're going to continue to give you dope content throughout the rest of the year. And of course, we still got a couple of gems coming up before the end of the summer. Like we always say here on The Vault, our motto is hashtag open the vault, hashtag nothing but the classics. And we got a special one today. So one that when I pull out of the archives, I knew that I had to get some help and I had to call in special forces to help me break this down. So who other to bring in and help me break down this album than the professor himself, Nathan Rideaux, CEO of Urban Science Media, and of course, Food Dope Podcast, and also Players from the South podcast as well. Those of you who have been listening have heard Nathan on this show a couple of times already before. So to break this down, we sat down and chopped it up about our next review. Here's how it went. And joining us here on the Vault Classic Music Reviews, once again, it's a familiar voice that you've heard on this show. Of course, he's a friend, and shoot, we might as well even just call him family at this point. We've done things so far, man. But of course, y'all know him well. He is the CEO of Urban Science Media. He is also the creator and host of First, Players from the South, hip-hop's first originally scripted documentary, the best scripted documentary out there related to hip-hop. Of course, man, it's a dope first season. And he is also the host and creator of Food Dope Podcast, International Food Dope, where he takes you around the country to some of the best chefs in America and then links the culinary space along with hip-hop music and culture. Does a really great job. It's come out with a lot of good episodes and good interviews with some of the best culinary minds in America. I'm talking about none other than Nathan Rideaux, the professor, as we like to call him here in the podcast world. Nathan, what's going on, man?
B. Cox, what it do, man? How you doing?
Everything is everything, bro. You know, everything is good. We're in the summertime, man. We're coming around the corner in the bend in summertime. And, you know, as we come around this bend, when we think about music in the past, this is usually right around the time when we start to get those classic end of summer classic albums that have come out over the years that drop right around that end of July, beginning of August. And for times past, I always remember and relate those back to the times when I was getting ready to go back to school. So, you know, it's pretty much the same thing here with this album that we got today. And I'm so glad that I have you here to talk about this album today, because this is right in your wheelhouse. And this is something that I caught on to very, very late, because I caught on to the group very late, because I didn't open my ears up and my mind enough to be able to really relate to their greatness. Right. So we're gonna take a trip back to 25 years ago, and we're gonna go back to July 30th, 1996, by Jive Records, and we're gonna look at the third studio album by the classic hip hop duo UGK. Ridin Dirty.
Yes, sir.
On Jive Records, released on July 30th, 96, recorded between 95 and 96. With a runtime of 65 minutes and 19 seconds. Interesting enough that this album came out on July 30th, 1996 by Jive Records, because another album of Jive Records came out during this day. It was also a Tribe Called Quest, Beats, Rhymes, and Life, which was the last review that you guys heard, you know. So it's really interesting, the two, you know, the differences between these two groups, and as far as like their style and everything else, and what they represented in hip hop, that they both came out on the same day. It's rare that you see that a label release two albums on the same day, you know. But yeah, man. But producers on this, mostly these two, and they're the ones who made everything happen. Pimp C himself, the late great Pimp C, and N.O. Joe. And also contributions by Mr. 3-2 and then Sergio. But the majority of this work was done by Pimp C, assistance by N.O. Joe. And there's some interesting things we'll talk about in just a second when it comes to the production of this album. This album really not getting a lot of fanfare when it came out. As I noted in a few articles, in particular the one that I'll reference a lot of times throughout this review is The Ringer, which was called A Coronation for Kingz. It was written by Max Bell. It came out last week. It talked mainly about basically how it came on to become one of the most influential Southern rap records ever, and the story about how it came, you know, about that, you know, Pimp C pretty much worked on producing this album himself, was assisted by N.O. Joe, and they kind of worked in tandem, but really worked. And then if there was a just suggestion by either one, it wasn't really be like, oh man, well, what you mean? It was like, all right, cool, let me do that. Turn that bass line up a little bit. Cool, let me do that. And then beyond just that, all the vocals that you hear on that, aside from one contribution that you hear on there, and that I believe is on One Day, everything else was done by Pimp C and N.O. Joe himself, which is amazing when you think about it, man.
It's amazing, man. And that's the way I was thinking about when we got in the conversation about this show. One thing I was going to preface before the making of the led up to the great culmination of this album was N.O. Joe, when he made the move down south to start rapping with Rap A Lot, and he brought that gumbo funk, which is what his production company's called. He brought that gumbo funk, and it pretty much put a stamp and started to define what the Southern sound could be, with the lush productions, the heavy bass lines, and we started getting away from the break beats, and you know what I'm saying, and then the samples, and start going with the lush heavy production. So shout out to N.O. Joe for bringing that, and it working its way up to 96 in this album.
Yeah. And N.O. Joe had previously worked on a few albums earlier in the decade. In particular, did a lot of work on Scarface's The Diary. And, and also had done work as well on other Ghetto Boys albums, Till Death Do Us Part and The Resurrection.
That's right.
So, he had been around for quite some time. And the interesting thing about this album, Nathan, is that there were no singles on this. This wasn't on the radio. This was strictly, as the name says, an underground thing. This was like, if you were on the third coast, specifically if you were in Houston, Port Arthur, anywhere in like that southeastern Texas, like anywhere up the coast, that third coast, you wasn't really hearing much about this. There weren't any videos with this album.
Right. And I heard Bun say that on one of his songs on his solo album on the, I think it was maybe it was The Story, out the gate, I don't know if it's close to platinum now, but they sold 700,000 without a video. Yeah. I mean, what other artists in that era can sell? You selling 700,000 albums with no video and no promotion.
Nothing.
And it's fun. And it's funny you said it came out the same day with Beats, Rhymes, and Life. And that's the interesting contrast that I play with in my mind all the time. Like, damn, why couldn't they get the same love and promotion that Tribe got and the others? Why y'all didn't understand what the South was at the time?
They did.
But then on the other side, I look at it like the shit is dope because they call UGK Underground Kings. maybe it was meant for them to be that. You know, it was meant to be for the streets. It was meant to ride like that, you know?
Yeah. And I always look at those artists in the mid-90s that really started to make their way and make their bones. You could throw UGK in there. You could talk about 3 6 Mafia. You could even talk about P and No Limit in them.
Yeah.
And these guys didn't really have a whole lot of promotion. Like, you would start to see things in the source about these upcoming albums because they had a little bit of bread and they were able to promote a little bit. But you weren't seeing things on the radio. You weren't hearing things on the radio. You weren't seeing videos like that. But they were still able to move units, man. Like, that's alone. And I think what the industry started to catch up with was like, man, these cats are starting to move units here, and they're doing it within like a certain range of like 500 to 600 miles, you know?
Right.
And if they can sell these kind of units, if we could put some money behind these cats nationwide, look, what could they do? You know?
Yeah.
So, oh man.
You know what? You know what one of my thoughts is about Jive Records, man? You know the age-old adage of the record company signing somebody just as a tax right. You know, they'll put money behind, they'll sign 10 acts, put money behind 2 and use the rest as a tax write-off.
Yeah.
Well, I think UGK was like Jive Records' worst nightmare because they probably, we'll sign them and use them as a tax write-off, but it was too fucking talented to do that because they were too talented and they brought a built-in audience. So you had to put money just for them to sell to their audience. Why not put the same energy in promoting, you know?
Yeah.
But they had a built-in audience, man, that appreciated and that still ride with them till today.
Yeah. As it states in this Ringer article, it stated that, you know, Pimp C talking about the Jive numbers in the 90s, that, you know, they never paid them any royalties on their first few albums. The money that they made was made on them touring and them getting money from features. They gave them a big advance to work on Ridin Dirty. They blew a majority of it going to New York and recording demos. They brought it back and said that, you know, Pimp C's mother, who was their their manager, basically told them, like, you know, she thought that when she listened to the demos, she thought it was the worst shit she ever heard in her life, you know? And so he was angry with Jive because he felt like they were being exploited. They didn't have enough funding. And at this point, it was like he sort of got in the corner with Joe. And at some point, he was like, he wasn't going to put the album out. Joe was like, yo, look, Pimp, longer you sit here with this album, you know, the longer you're going to be under contract with these dudes. So let's go ahead and get it done, man. So they got it done. And with working with Joe and doing things like using a Hammond B3 organ, playing a lot of those drums that you hear in particular live on an MPC versus having a drum loop, you know? Another thing that just adds to the mythology of this album, bruh. So just crazy talks, man. So we'll go actually, man, to your recollections of this time when this album came out. Give me a perspective of what the professor was doing when this album came out, when you heard it, and then what you thought then, and then what you think now.
Well, man, that's a good question, because what I can actually say, like, you know, just like you, I got onto it late. But I can remember in 1996 where I was the first time I heard Murder. And I didn't know about them coming out with a new album or none of that. It's just, it was summer 96, man. I remember exactly where I was. I had an 84 Cutlass and I had the windows down, hot at night. Woo! And you know how it is. And I remember Greg Street was on the radio on the mix show. Okay. And he put on Murder, man, and I knew, damn, when I heard it, I knew it was from the South and I knew where it was from. It was from the Gulf Coast. You know, at that time you could probably tell where music was coming from. Because of the different sounds of the different regions of the South. And when I heard, you know, the track, the drums, I was like, shit, this close to home. I knew exactly where it was from. Yeah. So that was Murder. That was summer 96, man. And then it just took off. Became, you know, UGK alumni. Yeah. They all got attached to it and, you know, just took off from there.
Yeah, man. Goodness. 96. See, like, with me, I didn't actually even hear anything about UGK until I want to say maybe not even Ridin Dirty. It had to be, I want to say, sometime after that, probably listening to some screw tape that somebody had me listen to, like in the 11th grade or something, man, and hearing them for the first time. But the first time I was actually really like exposed to them was Big Pimpin'. No lie. Okay. Because, but hearing them on Big Pimpin' made me want to go and listen to them more. Then I got to college at Morgan State. And I'm running into guys from my area. And I've told this to you before, man. The thing about the DC area, whether they live in the city or they out in the counties or places like that, a lot of people, their family come from the South, man. So a lot of cats in DC around that era, they were riding with a lot of South music and a lot of music from the West Coast. You know, they like DC dudes love Scarface, man. They loved Ghetto Boys. They loved No Limit and P and they loved Cash Money. And then out west, they loved Bay Area artists like E40 and Drew Down and Loonies and Spice One. You know, and even the Southern California, that went more with what we were used to because we have a go-go background in this area. We love live music. So the production you hear from those artists reminds a lot of us what we hear in go-go music, especially coming up, whether it was Chuck Brown, a Backyard Band, a Junkyard Band, a Trouble Funk, or EU and Sugar Bear. That's what reminded of us, that funk, that soul, when we heard in the West Coast and the Southern artist productions. When I got into UGK and heard Ridin Dirty, I was actually in college. And incidentally enough, it was when I was with the homies and we were blazing, you know? And I was just kind of like, when I was like, yo, I'm feeling this shit. Why the fuck haven't I heard this before? But then I was like, so I was high. Let me not be high and listen to this shit sober. So I listened to it sober. And being involved with music, having been an MC and then also having produced, what I was struck by was the fact that, these samples are cold. These organs in here are cold. These bass lines are cold. But then beyond just the music, it was the shit you were hearing. The contrast between C and B. Like between those two, Bun and Pimp C, man, just the contrast between the two of them. Like, it was a perfect match, a match made in heaven. When I went through each one of these 13 tracks, it was just like, almost like I felt like I was living in Houston myself. You know what I mean? Just being able to hear about and just like first really getting that first image of, you know, Candy Painted Slabs, you know, first hearing about the system, subwoofers and stuff in the back, like, you know, riding slow. I mean, like, you know, and then riding the stuff like screw tapes, like that whole subculture that they helped to bring out of Houston that people sort of experienced a little bit with Scarface and Ghetto Boys. But then when you got to like UGK, that sort of like experience like that whole Houston subculture, which people in DC took and grabbed and held on to, man. So I was hooked on this. And then when I opened my mind, because I was mostly just an East Coast hip hop head, you know, the only South music I really listened to was Outkast and Goody Mob. You know, I didn't really listen to anybody else. I didn't really like No Limit. I didn't like Cash Money. Other than Scarface, I mean, I wasn't really messing with nobody from Texas like that. But after this, though, it opened my mind to a whole lot of different other things. Though this opened my mind to Screw, opened my eyes up to Swisher House, the Suave House. There's so many different other great rap groups and outfits of the South, man. So now listening to it, I tell people, I've talked to you about my foundational Southern rap albums. So when I tell people, if you have like something that's going to lay the foundation of what a culture is and even the subcultures that we have in hip hop, this is to me a foundational Southern rap album. You know, there's a debate whether or not people will say this is their best album or not. Because I've heard other people say other things. I've heard folks say Super Tight, you know, a couple other, you know, I've heard folks, you know, say put their money behind the more recent project they put in, which, you know, everything's dope. But to me, when you talk about those foundational Southern rap albums, and you talk about P, Ice Cream Man, Southern Playalistic, I mean, you talking about, I mean, you could run them down a lot better than I can. But this is the things when I talk about the things that got me into Southern rap, this is one of them. This is absolutely one of them.
And you have to take into account when you're coming up with those thoughts of what could be the best. You have to take into account the time that it was, you know, the current time it was recorded in. Whether they were starving or not at the time. And you can feel it starving. I mean, whether it be for money or just for doper music or something, you can feel it. And like you said, foundational albums, this is definitely one of them. And the combination of the music. And first of all, I just have to say that, you know, coming up on the third coast, man, you know, as a down south b-boy, that's what I appreciate about UGK. They have such a love for hip hop. First and foremost, because all we had was East Coast. We had New York coming up in the 80s. That's why Pimp always say Pimp and Bun like DMC and DJ Run. You know, they have a love for that, but it branched off, I think, because our culture the music that we were influenced by, like the gospel tinge organs, as you said, and things of that nature. It had to like, and then it also branched off with the subculture with Screw and them, you know, other music's being created, but it's all under hip hop, man, which is dope, which is dope, man.
And that was the great thing about hip hop back then, that day, is that every subculture had their thing, but everybody sort of stuck to the tenets of what hip hop was at its base. But everybody had their own twist to it. You know, that's really what made everything unique, because everybody wasn't the same, man. Like you said, you could tell coming from the Third Coast, listening to them, where they was from, what part of the South they was from, what part of the Third Coast they was from. And it's like, okay. Now, see, that's when people used to stand out. And I miss a lot of that now, because nowadays you be listening to dudes, you don't know where the hell they come from, you know? And I miss a little bit about that, man, because I think that was the unique thing about hip hop, is that you could kind of like, you had that uniqueness about you. Your area, your region had a seal, a stamp of approval. You know, you had a signature is what it was, a signature. So, and another thing about this album, reading about it, these intros and these skits that you hear are things obviously by Smoke D.
Smoke D,
you know, and Smoke D actually recorded these while he was in the penitentiary in Mississippi. Now the story is in UGK is that he smuggled it into jail. He told that to Julie Beverly when he was talking to her about that during the with the interview that they did not too long ago. And he said basically, you know, hey, he took that in, and while he was sitting there talking to it, the guards probably thought he was singing along to a tape or something. He was just literally in there recording like an audio documentary, you know what I mean? So and that's just ridiculous, man, because it's just like I'd always wondered where those recordings had come from, and I was just like because it's just wild. It was just like for the longest while I never really knew, and then when you find out the dude was in prison, it's like, all right, this shit makes a lot more sense now, because I'm just wondering, who is he talking about? Who's kissing? Like, who does he do?
Free world steak and shrimp.
Right.
And the thing about it, though, man, the thing I can say about this album, man, it flows so well. Those interludes with Smoke D, the shit just flows well, man, all into just a great body of work.
Oh, yeah, definitely. So, man, now we're going to get into highlights, man. So break down your highlights, any lowlights if you have them, man, and just go ahead and give them to us.
All right. First of all, man, I was going to say, because you mentioned earlier the great contrast in styles between Pimp and Bun. And I'm just going to start off with one of mine that I just recently noticed while listening maybe a couple of weeks ago. I started off my day, I was listening to Illmatic, you know, earlier in the day. And, you know, the song Life's a Bitch, and how dope. You have the narrative being told of Nas and AZ. The narrative being told is like two sides of the same consciousness. One guy talks hope, one guy is hopeless. So, and it got me to thinking, man. I was listening to High Life. And I listened to that shit, and it put me in a place where I could say, man, damn, it's Ridin Dirty, our Illmatic.
Wow.
Because, you know, the way Nas told his story, his tales and his shit, and put it in the way the city embraced it, man, it's like, this High Life, man, it just puts you in that place, because it reminds me of stories, my own family, you know, when Pimp is telling the story of Dee Dee getting married and Edgar on the boat. That sounds like shit, you know, that's shit my family say down, you know, down bottom. You know, it's shit like that. But yeah, High Life would be one of my highlights on this album, man. I told you about Murder already. Diamonds and Wood, you know, I think that's the first time DJ Screw, a hook by DJ Screw was sampled for, you know, put out on mainstream release. The shit is fire, that Diamonds and Wood. I think my favorite song on the album is an N.O. Joe produced one, and it's That's Why I Carry.
Goodness, that's some heat.
And that's some heat, and that's one. If you sit down and listen closely, man, Bun's verse, the way he ended the song, I think it's one of the most pivotal verses in hip hop history, especially in the South. The way Bun and Sia light your world up explosively, you know. That verse. Another one for me, man, is I think probably the first time in history I could probably say that an interlude is probably my favorite song on the album. Is the outro to the album.
Woo, yeah.
You know?
Yeah, my goodness. Yeah. That it's a 9.5 minute long outro, you know, and you really don't notice, to tell you the truth, man, because
you don't notice it.
You don't. Wow.
And it's 9.5 minutes, man. And I got to sit there. Once I started to take notice of it, I had to buy the album on vinyl just to listen to that through the monitors, man. But once, and that's probably a song, even though it's 9.5 minutes, I listened to it. I never cut it off early. If I have something to do, I listen to that whole joint, man, where you can close your eyes, man, and visualize like Pimp's telling the whole Southern hip hop history through one song, just sending shouts out. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You know, and he's naming the cities, the people. You know, Lafayette. I used to live in Lafayette. You know, he's naming the people, and Shaquille O'Neal kept it real with me. You know, this shit is fire, man.
Yeah, man. It's something when listening to this album that you get the picture of this sort of like the life that they were living, but then you also sort of get in a picture of what people around them are sort of going through too. You know, it's something that really was, for those of us who weren't familiar with that area of the country, really an introduction to tell you, like, look, folks going down here going through the same type of stuff you're dealing with. Now, the words are different. How they say it might be different. The accent's different. But it's the same thing, man. You could literally take those stories and transport that to Southeast DC or to somewhere in Newport News or to somewhere in Atlanta or somewhere in Columbia, South Carolina. I mean, so it's a translatable concept. The delivery, I think, is what brought everybody in. You know, the delivery is what I think is what captured you.
Right.
From my go ahead.
To add to that note about delivery, man, I think what I think they're appreciated for, and not just UGK, but a lot of groups in the Third Coast, because I think when I was on your show last time, when they all started out on the independent level, you don't have A&Rs overlooking what you're saying. So you're free to say what you want. And I think, you know, they didn't waste time with a lot of metaphors and everything. What they spoke was shit they were going through.
Exactly.
Like I heard every song Pimp ever did was something he was thinking at the moment or situation he was going through. So it was never about battle rhymes or trying to impress people with metaphors and things like that.
Yeah.
And I think people appreciate the realness and you know, the truth and the realness in that.
Yeah.
Summer happens at Speedway because everything you need for summer happens at Speedway. Like drinks. Drinks happen. The freshly brewed drink, the splashed over ice drink, the wake you up drink, the cool you off drink, the make your brain hurt for a minute drink. All poured however you want them, whenever you want them, all summer long. So on every hot day, you have something cold to sip. Speedway, summer happens here. And now, get any size fountain or Speedy Freeze for just 99 cents. Excludes maximum.
We can sum up McDonald's new crispy chicken sandwich in one word: crispy. But also juicy and tender. Maybe crispy, juicy, tender, all one word? Okay, fine. You'll just have to try our crispy chicken sandwich to understand it.
Get a free medium fries and medium soft drink with purchase of any crispy chicken sandwich. Available only on the app. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba. Price and participation may vary. McDonald's app download and registration required.
The realness. The realness of what you get from Pimp C and Bun B are what I think attracts most of us to them. Because you don't never got to worry about what they thinking. They going to let you know exactly what it is that they thinking. You know what I mean? Especially Pimp. Like, he was one of the realest dudes out there. When I talk about some real talk, like he gonna let you know, like that. That's him right there, man.
Yeah. I was gonna say, and for people who think, you know, as far as the explicitness of Pimp C and the crassness, I think if you pay too much attention to that, you missing something that he did with the music underneath. You know, pay attention to what he's doing with the harps on Like That remix, you know, or pay attention to, you know what I'm saying? It's little shit like that, man.
Yeah, man. Oh goodness, it's. Well, look, man, it's there's a lot on this album just to be able to unpack in regards to what they did production wise and how innovative it was at that particular time, because it was a lot of the things they did were a little unorthodox, but knowing that they had so much of a limited production budget, N.O. Joe pretty much did this at, you know, about a portion of what his going rate was, but he did it because he said he believed in the project, you know, he cemented himself as a result of this. I mean, he was already an established producer, but I think this helped to, you know, producers mostly are linked to classic albums that helped to cement their legacy. And this is just another one, probably the second in about 2 or 3 years that he had, you know, that he was linked to, man. So, so my highlights. So, I mean, to me, I love everything on this album. I mean, I love Murder. Like, I agree with you there when you listen to that, and it kind of hits you right in the chest. I actually, when it comes to Diamonds and Wood, I mean, this is like one of those songs where it's just like, how can I explain it? It's like riding on a bed of clouds in a 64 Cutlass Supreme with the windows down, with the fattest blunt of some sticky icky, cruising at like 35 miles an hour.
Yeah, bro.
That's what it feels like to me. It's smooth. And then not just that, the song is so smooth, but then the shit that you hearing from Pimpin' Bun of the song ain't really smooth. Yeah. You know? They talking about some hard shit. The shit that's going on in the song, man. But the song gives you that feeling. It's like, yo, I always tell people, man, if I ever had a major entrance to be able to come into something, this is like on a short list of songs that I want them to play as I'm walking out. You know what I'm saying? I hear you. Diamonds and Wood. I mean, it's wow, man. 3 in the Morning, obviously, is another classic UGK song. That's
one of the best hooks. That's one of the best hooks ever.
Absolutely. Absolutely. When you said that's why I carry, I sitting here and I was nodding my head, and I was like, that beat. I mean, that beat and the way that it was put together and the way that it hits you when it hits on this track. And I was just like, whoo, my goodness. I know Joe put his foot in this beat.
He put it, man.
He put his foot in this beat.
Yeah.
And those verses on there, especially with Bun's verses on there. But Bun's verses on there, man. Oh.
Bun said, when we got the red drink, purple drink, you know what I'm talking about? You can hear the bells in the background. Man. Laugh and say they never heard it.
Yeah, exactly. The High Life. That's in the contender from my favorite song on the album. Like you said, man, listening to it. And then like the hook on this one is another one of those hooks on here. It's just like, yo, they did this themselves. Like they actually did this hook. Like, and then the just the stuff that you hear, of course, in the song as well. This is a great Pimp C and N.O co-production. Really works well. The track Ridin Dirty is to me something that even when I think about this album, I even forgot about it. But it to me is a very slept on track when it comes to this album. But I liked it, and I was just like, I forget about this joint, man. And then
you can easily forget him.
You can forget about it. But the outro, as you stated, man, with Smoke D taking us out one last time, and then Pimp C pretty much going through, shouting out all his homies. I mean, gotta hit my man up, Master P. All them out in New Orleans, everybody out in Tennessee, Nashville, Memphis, Ducksville, and talking about he got to go over to Atlanta, hit up my boys, Organized Noise. What's up, Rico?
Man.
Shouting out everybody, shouting out their boy Be Legit, from the Bay Area. Which in this Ringer album, he pretty much supplied a good amount of that West Coast chronic that they needed. Like Pimp C said, that good fluffy weed, fluffy green. You know what I mean?
I'm smoking, baby. We always smoke.
Yeah. I mean, it's just and then backed up on that instrumental with Diamonds and Wood, man. It's just like
Yeah, like it don't get no better as far as closing out an album. And man, and you mentioned I think one of my favorite lines on the whole album when you mentioned the song Ridin Dirty is when Pimp said, "Police they want to run in, talking on cell phones got a lot of kings done in. I want to live like Arnold Willis and Mr. Drummond." Man. That's one of my favorites, man. And I forgot to mention in the beginning, man, that actually one of the people that you mentioned has his footprint all over this album is Mr. 3-2. That I just found out like 4 years ago. I went to a family reunion that he was a relation to mine, man.
Oh man, okay.
Yeah. They had a memorial. That was the year that he passed, and they had a memorial up in the building of all the people in the family that passed that year, and they had his picture and everything. I was like, wait a minute. Yeah. So I had to start to ask my people in Texas, and they was like, we kin to him.
Yeah. Wow. Man, that's crazy. That's crazy, man. Yeah. No, he definitely has his fingerprints on this. On One Day. On Touched, worked as a producer on this as well, helped to co-produce One Day also featuring Ronnie Spencer, who, as they mentioned in the article in the Ringer, and as I mentioned I heard with my ears, sounded a hell of a lot like Ronnie Isley. You know,
sure did.
you know,
and the vocal arrangement, man, and you can look at like at the time, like Pimp and Bun, we were all the same age. So at the time we were 21, 22, and they was recording this, and you got to look not only beats and rhymes, but vocal arrangement. On this album, especially on One Day and High Life, the vocal arrangement on the hook. Yeah, man, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous, man.
Yeah, it is, because when you think about, man, like from a hip hop background, but also coming up and listening to music, to be able to do vocal arrangements like that, like those are like vocal arrangements you only get from like R&B folks, man, folks who are singers, man. But like they said in the article, N.O. Joe himself had spent time and had done some singing, and so it Pimp. So it was like, it was easy for them to be able to do this, man. It was amazing vocal arrangements.
Yeah, and you took it the love and dedication. Pimp, like I said earlier, was a down south b-boy. The love and dedication he had to his craft. What between the first album and Super Tight, he made a voyage of Mecca over to New Orleans and learned from Leo Nositelli from the Funky Meters. That's where the organ came from. So to get away from the samples and everything from the first album, he wanted to bring in a new sound. And he went to New Orleans and learned and studied. And that's when he came back and was able to bring the organs and everything like that and the musicality into it. Yeah.
Oh, man. I mean, it's just, it's something that, listening to an album, especially, from that particular time, to be able to hear musically, like the things that they were able to accomplish, like I said, and again, with not a whole lot of, not a big budget, not a big machine behind it, no marketing, no nothing. They literally came out. It was almost like, reading this article, they almost made this album strictly for the love. I mean, they made it because they were contractually, obligated to make it, but it really, you could hear in this album that they were making this, man, all driven, like you said, for the love, man, of the culture. Yeah. For the culture. Yeah. Yeah, man.
Yeah, and another one of my songs on here, man, is that I forget about sometimes, but Good Stuff.
Okay.
And that one had to grow on me. But I think one thing that Pimp is the master of is entering a verse and exiting a song. When I'm coming down candy, putting in my work. Got hanging on a $10,000 shirt. That's also one of my highlights on this album, man. It's funky as hell too.
Yeah. Pimp definitely gonna give you something in them first 4 bars and them last 2 bars.
Exactly. Yeah.
He gonna give you something to remember.
He gonna give you something. Yes,
He gonna give you something to remember, man. Awesome. Yeah. So now we're gonna get into notable quotables, man. You've named a few of them, but is there something in particular that you wanted to mention as for our notable quotables?
Oh man, I gave up a lot already. Yeah. Oh man. Let me hear yours first, and let me see if I could. I can come up with something.
So this isn't the best verse on the album, but this is the one that sticks with me the most. And this is Bun's verse during Diamonds and Wood, And he comes up, I looked up today and didn't fall prey to that pistol play. But who's to say tomorrow that they won't be blasting this away? I'm puffing spliffs of hay, still upset about this drama here at this time of year. I'm wiping away my dead homie's mama's tears. But naturally, them fucking laws is always after me, so I have to be in that manner on that 503. I'm living dastardly. Must be all about survival, G. These niggas passing me. Streets just keep on getting live with me. They said there has to be another way, but I ain't feeling that. They tried to still a lack. In my wig, they want to pill a fact, but still the fact remains it's all about the cane, swang and bang, peace to E and G and all the victims of the game, man. Yeah, come on.
Man.
Yeah, I mean.
That one's up against that word.
Yes, exactly. And then it's just like that hook comes in. And this is kind of goes back to what Pimp used to say about Bun. He was like, look, man, he said in an interview that he put Bun up against any other one of these MC niggas. He's like, yo, I put Bun, this nigga, up against anybody. Any one of y'all MC niggas out here, I put my nigga up against anybody. And that's what I always kind of respected about him, man, is his pen was just as good as any one of his contemporaries, whether you talking about from the West Coast or a little bit further down south to even up north, man. It's his pen was very, very underrated for quite a long time.
Yeah. And I think people finally start to come around and give the man his props too.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Well deserved. Well deserved. Yeah.
Well, I look at as a quotable, man, the way Pimp opened the song, I'm tired of living fucked up, I'm tired of living bad. High Life, man.
Yeah.
I'm tired of hearing grandmama say, when you gonna go to church, Chad.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
That's just, it sounds some real life.
Some real life shit. Yeah.
Some real life shit. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, you know, and he tried to live up to the image that she would want me to be, but I got one foot in the street and every week to flip a key. Yeah, flip a key. I mean, it's like, yeah, it's something that, like I said, man, that relatability. It's a lot of people. How many people grew up, man, and grandmama telling them they got to go to church. They need to get their life together. You need to live right. And so many of them mess around and it will have a foot in the street, have a foot in the house and trying to do right. But the money of the street good, but the street ain't no good for them. I mean, it's something that a lot of people can relate to, man. You know, it's something a lot of us can relate to with people that we know that are like that. You know, yeah, man. That is, like I said, the quality about UGK that gets so many of us hooked into them because of that, man. So, oh man. Now to talk a little bit about, we talk about the you know, everyone's talked about, you know, UGK and their legacy and what they mean, not just to the Third Coast, but then what they mean to the South overall. In your perspective. Now, like we said, no music videos, no singles. This was not on the radio. So far, what they've had, as it says, officially now up to 850,000 copies sold to date. You know, and now this is off of no promotion. This is off of no singles. Nobody's going to the box or Rap City to see any of these videos, you know, from back in the day. You're not seeing these on any one of the, even on BET Jams, you know, BET Soul. You're not seeing any of that. You know, you're not even necessarily hearing so much of this stuff in UGK at parties, you know, but this is how well it's done. In your perspective, man, how impressive is that they were able to do this? They've done this well with none of that. You know, there are people that have put out all of those, all three have had radio play, videos, and singles, and haven't even sold that much. How impressive is that to you, man?
That's very impressive for them to be able to have a catalog to display, and you can hear the growth in each album as men and as musicians, and you know, man, as husbands, as fathers, or whatever, man, you could just hear the progression. And one thing I can give them credit for is because of the subject matter is real, and they have gotten appreciation. People have appreciation for their realness. I think it's made their music timeless. It can't be put into a box to say this is outdated.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely, yeah.
And as I said earlier, I wish Jive Records would have known what they had.
Yeah.
For these guys to be able to go and do what they did pretty much off of bad contracts with their first label and get the business with the IRS and they put out a lifetime of music, man, and the shit is still banging to this day. Yeah. So to answer your question, it's very impressive that they were able to build that legacy based on music first and the bullshit second, because they never got wrapped up in the imagery. You know, look how long they had to wait. Like Pimp had to wait until they did the video for Big Pimpin' for people to actually see an image of what Pimp C is. Yeah. You know, they had to wait that long, and to think of how their label wasn't behind them because they didn't agree to do Big Pimpin' 2. Yeah. Huh. So that's why they shelved the next album, Dirty Money, until it, like Bun said, until the album got cold, because they didn't want to do another song with Jay. They didn't want to get a Timberland. They didn't want to do a Big Pimpin' 2. And why? He said, because our fans will think we flop. Now, that shit is not hip-hop, then what is?
Yeah, there you go. There you go, man. And that's just keeping it real with people, man. You know, that's just keeping it real with people. The one thing that I have to give credit to Pimp and Bun, and the thing that I even said, even about the Locks and this whole thing that came out with this versus between them and Dipset this past week, is that you never saw any bullshit between the two of them, man. Like, you even see in these interviews, different interviews between the two of them, man, they always kept it 100 with each other. They were always together. You never really saw any type of shit happen when Pimp got locked up and, you know, he went away for a little bit. You know, Bun was always riding with him. When he came out, it was like, bam, we picking right back up where we left off, Playboy. Yeah. And we gonna make these things. And then they came out with that last studio album and still fucked the game up, you know, from many different perspectives with so many different guest spots on there. So the one thing I can respect about them is they always roll for each other, man. And it's hard because in hip hop, you have a lot of groups where, you know, niggas break up and stuff happen. People get jealous of each other. Somebody wants to go solo. The record label drop y'all. People start blaming each other. You ain't getting none of that shit with these dudes, man. And that's, to me, is the hallmark of a true friendship, of a brotherhood. And there's just two real G's just really sitting there with each other and being like, all right, man, I got you, bro. Everything good. Yeah. You know? And
whatever they had happen between them is just like you said, just like brothers. So it didn't spill out onto the music. They kept it 100 with each other, kept it professional, and did what they had to do with the music.
Exactly. There you go, man. Yeah. So we get to the point, man, where we're at, man. The final verdict, the test to see if it stands the test of time, whether we think it's a certified classic, borderline classic just in its time, or not a classic at all. And then we rate it from 7 to 10. 7 that we don't feel as strongly about it, and 10 that we feel very strongly about it. I think I already know what you're going to say, bro, but what say you, Nathan, about the Ridin Dirty?
Certified classic, bro, and I give it a 10. I give it to the maximum. Certified classic.
Yeah. Same here. Certified classic, 10 out of 10. It's, like I said, a foundational Southern rap album. It's a foundational hip-hop album, really, if you think about it, man. All the aspects of hip-hop taken into place. This is something, when you talk about H-Town, Port Arthur, Houston, Texas hip-hop, you can't have that conversation without talking about this album. You can't. It's right up there with Mr. Scarface's Back in the Diary. It's right up there with Ghetto Boys, Grip It on that other level. And also We Can't Be Stopped. You know, it's right up there, even if you want to put it on that. Since he from Texas, DOC, no one could do it better. You know, I mean,
Big Mike, Something Serious.
Yes, Big Mike, Something Serious. Come on, man. You having that conversation about these same joints. You talking about hip hop in the state of Texas, man. It starts right here with them. These are the albums that you have to listen to. So Ridin Dirty, certified classic, 10 out of 10 without a shadow of a doubt, man. So, you know, there we have it, bro. So before we actually get out of here, and of course, I always thank you for stopping by, man. And things are going good with Food Dope. It's a dope podcast. Everybody who isn't listening to it, make sure you're listening and subscribe to it. And also make sure y'all subscribe to Players in the South and checking out what's coming on with that, man. But I wanted to ask you, you just shared something with me about a project you got coming on. Of course, ironically enough, related to the group that we just covered, UGK. But you got a project coming up about something going on with them, man, the story that's being told, man. So let the folks know what's going on with that.
Yeah. Thank you, bro. What I got is, you know, I like to try to stay cutting edge of what I'm doing, and I'm working on an audio documentary. It's called Boys to Kingz, a UGK story, and it's actually the story of Big Mitch, Mitchell Queen, and you probably know been a lot of songs with Pimp name Big Mitch, Mitch and the Queen family, and a lot of their songs. Me and Big Mitch, we've been cool for quite a few years, and I always wanted to do. He got so many stories, and I just wanted to. Never had the right arena with him being in Texas and me being in Atlanta, you know, to be able to sit down and curate these stories and everything. I figured we'll go ahead. I was like, man, let's do a documentary. I'll produce it, whatever, and I'll let you sit down. You tell your story of UGK, because Mitch is the founding father of UGK. He came up with the name UGK. Yeah, we got unreleased music. Original music from the original UGK, which is Mitch and Pimp, from 1989 and 90, bro. They got an album. They got an album they did. We're gonna have in this documentary.
Oh boy.
And the way the story is, Mitch had to bow out because UGK was a big collective at first, Underground Kingz, and Mitch had got a football scholarship out of high school, so he went away to college, and that's how Pimp and Bun ended up being the last two members. That's who Big Mitch is, and I want to send a shout out to Big Mitch right now. Shout out to the DMV, the DC area, and everybody down with the Southern movement and everything, like you said, man. And yeah, but Boys to Kingz, a UGK story, it'll be out next year, and it's going to be an audio documentary, man. I can't wait to do it and, you know, get some more stories out there.
Awesome, man. Boys to King, a UGK story by Mitchell Queen, an audio documentary by the professor himself, Nathan Rideaux. Bro, I'm looking forward to this. This unreleased music that you're telling me has definitely piqued my interest, because the one thing that I always I like to hear tidbits that I haven't heard before. I talked to you before we came on that I did the interview with the Breaking Adams podcast. They did the Brooklyn's Finest, The Making of Reasonable Doubt, man. They spoke to a lot of people about the making of that album. You know, Ski, Clark Kent, Pain in the Ass, Maria Green from Mad Wednesdays, a lot of people in the industry, like engineers and also people who were like journalists. And it was a great documentary. There were a lot of tidbits and songs in there that I hadn't heard before. So this definitely has my interest peaked. And I can't wait to see the dopeness that y'all come up with this documentary, bro. I'm definitely going to be looking forward to it.
Appreciate that, homie.
Yo, man, as always, Nate, man, before you go, throw your handles out there, social media pages. Let the people know where they can find you and your work, man, and how they can connect with you.
Okay, cool. You can find me on IG at the Professor 73. That's at the Professor, the number 73. And also at Food Dope Podcast. That's Food Dope Podcast. And also go ahead and listen to Players from the South. That's Players from the Z. Check any of your podcast platforms. And what that is the first hip hop audio drama scripted by me. We go into the history of the South, the Gulf Coast, the Third Coast. We throw a little bit of story of gentrification in there to mix it in with what's going on with today. Go ahead and check it out, listen, subscribe, or whatever. And you can hit me up on by email at fooddopepodcast@gmail.com. That's fooddopepodcast@gmail. Listen to Food Dope also. Got some dope chefs, and we talk hip-hop. We mix culinary arts and hip-hop, and we draw the parallels between the two disciplines.
Yeah, man, I have to listen to Food Dope on a full stomach, bruh, because after I listen sometimes, a couple of times I messed around and listened on an empty stomach, and I was like, damn, I'm hungry. What the hell they was talking about sound good as hell, man. Let me go see if I can get me something to eat. So I suggest if y'all doing that, y'all trying to watch your weight, you might want to listen to Food Dope on a full stomach. Dope. Yeah, but definitely make sure y'all check it out, man. Good stuff. And Nathan always puts out dope content, man. So the Professor, Nathan Rideaux, thank you again for joining us once again here on the Vault Classic Music Reviews. We gonna holler at you on the flip side, bro.
Thank you, bro. I'll be talking to you soon.
And a big shout out once again to Nathan Rideaux, the Professor, on the Vault here, breaking down Ridin Dirty by UGK. Big shout out to Nathan, always coming through and showing love to the show. Of course, always breaking down those Southern classics for us. Make sure y'all checking out Food Dope Podcast, and as well showing love to Players from the South. Two great shows of content you got right there. And of course, make sure to look out for that UGK audio doc when it comes out, especially because what Nathan said he have coming, and I can't wait to hear what they have in store for us with that project. And that is going to wrap up yet another edition of The Vault. Please make sure you check us out on our hosts on Red Circle. You can also download, stream, and subscribe to The Vault Classic Music Reviews on any one of our streaming sources. If you go to the link in any one of our social media pages in the bio, you will find our link tree. There you'll find all of our social media pages and also all of our streaming sources. Again, you can get to the Vault Classic Music Reviews on Instagram on @VaultCMR Podcast, on Twitter @Vault Classic, and on Facebook and YouTube by searching the Vault Classic Music Reviews Podcast. Like the Facebook page, subscribe to the YouTube channel, check out everything that we have going on, including our last bonus episode with the Breaking Adams podcast. Great talk there, and make sure you're following us on all those platforms. We love to hear and interact with you all on social media. We do it here all for you. We appreciate the support, and if you have a friend, tell a friend, and make sure that that friend tells a friend. Always remember to keep your headphones on and your music loud, but not too loud. And as we close, we like to remind everyone to dream big, because dreams are the basis for creation. Always create, motivate, and elevate, because you were never destined or created to stay stationary in this life. And on that note, we say peace.
Thank you for listening and coming into The Vault. Please subscribe and follow us on Facebook at IV Creative and Instagram at IVECRE8.
T-Mobile gives you more ways than ever to get out there with America's largest 5G network and the epic iPhone 12 with 5G on us. Whether you're hitting the road,
Check out this great 4K video. I even posted it with 5G way out here.
or getting the team together. Right now, current and new customers get up to 4 iPhone 12s on us on our Max plan with eligible trade-ins. Only at T-Mobile.
Each phone on us via 24 credits plus tax for well-qualified buyers. If you cancel credit, stop, and balance on required finance agreements may be due. Contact us. See 5G coverage, access, and offer details at T-Mobile.com.
We can sum up McDonald's new crispy chicken sandwich in one word: crispy. But also juicy and tender. Maybe crispy, juicy, tender. All one word? Okay, fine. You'll just have to try our crispy chicken sandwich to understand it.
Get a free medium fries and medium soft drink with purchase of any crispy chicken sandwich. Available only on the app. Price and participation may vary. McDonald's app download and registration required.